All right, so this is a translation and a discussion of the Aeneid, Book 11, lines 532 to 543. And so it's all going to be now in these sections that we read about Camilla. But just to catch us up from Book 7 and what we missed, very quickly, in Book 8 is when the fellow Aeneas goes and, looking for allies, visits Evander on what will be the future site of Rome. Evander is a king, and Evander offers up his son, Pallas, to fight on behalf of Aeneas and the Trojans, and it is indeed an almost personal guarantee that is given by Aeneas that he's going to look out for Pallas. Which is, of course, some foreshadowing, as it is going to drive a lot of the action of the Aeneid moving forward. Nevertheless, also, Evander tells the story of Cacus, a fire-breathing monster that had been terrorizing the locale where Evander lives long before Evander was there, and was overcome and killed by Hercules. And so Hercules sets up the cattle market known as the Forum Boarium later on, in honor of that defeat of the cattle thief, fire-breathing monster Cacus. It is also in Book 8 that we have the Shield of Aeneas, made by Vulcan, that features all kinds of scenes from one day would-be Roman history, including the Battle of Actium, that when he then receives it, Aeneas doesn't have any idea what's going on with that. Book 9, it features a raid upon the Rutulian camps, the Italian camps, by the companions Nisus and Euryalus, and from their a bit of almost greed and the daylight that then comes, they linger too long in the camp and end up getting seized and killed. Book 10, you find the, of course, death of the hated Etruscan king Mezentius that is killed by, obviously, Aeneas. And then you also have the death of Pallas at the hand of Turnus, which is going to play a large role at the end, obviously, of Book 12. But, oh well, let's go ahead and finish it up, or start, I should say, with this Book 11. So, meanwhile, in Teria, the sad Latonian, and this is, I guess if you can use the word patronymic, but Latona is Diana, the goddess of the hunt, her mother, and so when you call her the Latonian, that means that obviously she is the daughter of Latona, Diana. And so, sad Diana, in the seats above, and by, of course, representation, or even making it substantized, divine seats, as it were, she was compelling. This means to address. She was addressing swift Opus. And then we found out who Opus is. One out of her virgin allies, virgin companions. And remember, to be a follower of Diana, you must be like Diana, completely chaste, completely a virgin, and having zero interest in men, and obviously getting married, having a family, all that sort of stuff. So, sad Latona, she was addressing swift Opus, meanwhile, in the divine seats. Opus, one out of the virgin companions, and one out of the sacred band, the sacred coterie, the sacred group, the sacred gang. And she was giving these voices from her mouth. And so, again, what we have is a situation where she is sad because she knows in the upcoming war that Camilla is going to fight and that Camilla is going to fall. And so that's why she's a sad Diana, as it were. And so she says, quote, "O virgin," talking to Opus, obviously, "Camilla proceeds the deponent verb gradior, gradi, gressusum, to cruel war. And in vain she is girded, she is encircled." This has a sense of mediopassive reflexiveness because, as I have girded myself, magister, balteo, sword belt, I guess it could be a sword belt if I were to add, obviously, the sword to it, cingitur, in that, yes, he is girded, is encircled by the belt, balteo, but really, he encircles himself, and that is exactly what is kind of meant here. So, in vain, She girdles herself, encircles herself with our weapons. And in vain, because they're not going to protect her. And remember that arma is going to often mean the defensive weapons, the kind of armor that you would, of course, wear. Your shield, for example, would be a part of your arma, whereas tela, the plural of telum, is going to be often referred to as a generic offensive weapon. And so therefore, they're in vain, these arms, because she is going to end up being killed. She, meaning Camilla, dear to me, cara mihi, before others. And so therefore, she is her number one gal. Diana loves Camilla the most. For that new love has not come to Diana, or for Diana. In other words, she's loved Camilla from the very start. This isn't some recent sort of care and concern that she has, and so it's not that. And here, Istay, of course, is the same as Leila Alud, but it has kind of a sharper edge to it, and that's why I often translate it as that freakin'. And so, for, or indeed, that freakin' new love has not come for Diana, and it has not moved, or she has not moved, her mind with a sudden sweetness. So in other words, it is not some sort of new care and concern, but she loved Diana, as we're going to learn, all the way back from her earliest days. And a part of the reason why is that Metabus, her father, is going to be the one responsible for raising her to become the ideal follower of Diana. And so he indeed now is our subject. Metabus, having been struck, having been driven from the kingdom on account of the haterade, the hatred or the envy, and on account of the proud strengths. And so you could apply this to maybe it's Metabus who has the haterade and is a harsh ruler. Maybe it's Metabus that has the, obviously, the proud strengths, as it were. When Metabus was going out from Privernus, the ancient city, he, fleeing between the middle battles of war, he lifted his infant as a companion, his companion, in his exile. And so when he leaves, when he is driven into exile with the people who have kicked him out from Privernus on his heels, trying to get to him and eliminate him completely, he takes his little infant baby. And he called her Camilla, from the name Matris Casmillae, of her mama Casmilla, with part having been changed, having been mutated. And the part having been changed or mutated, obviously, he just drops out the S that is right there. So Metabus, driven into exile, leaves out from the city, takes his infant daughter, a companion in his exile, and names her after his wife, who has died in childbirth. And so, let us stop here, continue studying, Latin out, and best of luck.